Hi, good evening. You're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Soraya Mia. 4 Thai nationals linked to the mass graves found in Wang Kelian, Perlis, will face charges in Malaysia on Friday. Home Minister Datuk Seri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail said the 4 will be brought to the Kangar Sessions Court after a 6-year-long extradition process. However, he did not specify the charges they would be facing.
Saifuddin said the Thai Court of Appeals issued a detention order on March 30th for the 4 to be extradited to Malaysia. He also said joint investigations between Malaysia and Thailand identified 10 people linked to the mass graves discovered in May 2015. He added that the government hoped this collaboration can continue to track down the remaining individuals involved. In 2015, police uncovered 139 graves and 29 migrant detention camps at the country's border with Thailand. The government established a Royal Commission of Inquiry to further investigate the case in 2019.
Meanwhile, political parties are reminded to stay away from sensitive issues involving religion, royalty and race, or the 3 Rs in the upcoming state polls. Home Minister Datuk Seri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail said political parties are free to express different views regardless of their views, even if it's against the ruling government, as long as they do not touch on aspects of the 3 Rs. He noted that politicking the 3 Rs has been the current trend, which he believes will continue during the state elections. Commenting further, he said the newly appointed Inspector General of Police, Tan Sri Razaruddin Hussein, and his Deputy Datuk Sri Ayub Khan Maiden Piche had been told to focus on addressing hate speech involving royalty, religion and race. Meanwhile, when asked to comment on preparations for the state election, he said some 40,000 police personnel would be deployed to ensure the election process runs smoothly in the 6 states, namely Kelantan, Negeri Sembilan, Selangor, Penang, Kedah and Terengganu. The admission of Rohingyas to Malaysian universities is based on merit and their ability to pay fees, says Higher Education Minister Datuk Seri Muhammad Khalid Nordin. He gave an assurance that the admission process for Rohingyas will not be done arbitrarily.
Kita tahu masa depan dia bergantung sama ada dia boleh dapat ilmu ataupun tidak. Bagi kita ialah kalau ada tempat, kita tak ada halangan untuk beri, kerana mereka bukannya kalau nak masuk universiti bukan maknanya mereka yang macam kita tengok di sana. Mereka memang pandai, mereka memang layak. Dan tak semestinya IPTA, dia mungkin juga boleh IPTS. So atas sebab itulah kita tak boleh anggap bahawa ini sesuatu yang saya ingat dia lari daripada nilai-nilai kita lah sebagai seorang manusia dan insan. Kita langsung tak nak tolong orang. Kita hanya fikir kita je.
He was responding to critics who claimed that the government's move to let Rohingya refugees further their studies in local universities could threaten Malaysia's sovereignty. Muhammad Khalid said the Malaysian perception of Rohingya refugees needs to be corrected. Besides treating fellow Muslims better, Khalid said giving them access to education would also provide the opportunity for Rohingya students to educate their own community. The Health Ministry warns that dengue cases may reach unprecedented levels in the coming months. Deputy Director of Disease Control, Dr. Husnina Ibrahim, says an outbreak is projected to take place sometime this or next year.
Dr. Husnina said the number of dengue cases are expected to surpass the outbreak that occurred in 2019. According to her, Malaysia saw a 158% rise in dengue cases from January to June 4th, 2023, compared to the same period last year. The country also recorded a 183% increase in the death toll. She said the upward trend would likely continue as Malaysia typically experiences a surge in dengue cases every 4 to 5 years. Dr. Husnina also urged the public to play their part in preventing an outbreak by helping to search and destroy Aedes breeding grounds.
Selected pilgrims from the B40 and M40 groups who appealed to perform the Hajj this year will have to pay the full cost of 30,850 ringgit per person, as they are not in the current quota. Religious Affairs Minister Datuk Muhammad Naim Mukhtar said priority would be given to those on the list to perform the pilgrimage in 2020, 2021 and 2022 who were delayed due to the pandemic. He said the ministry will open the quota for those who are not in the queue when there is a vacancy, which could be any time between 2025 and 2027. These people will be eligible for Hajj financial assistance during these years. He explained that the appeal policy is meant for those who are physically and financially capable. The first-time cost of Hajj for pilgrims from the B40 group is set at 10,980 ringgit per person, while the M40 group is set at 15,980 ringgit. He said some 69 Hajj pilgrims from the B40 and M40 groups refused financial assistance to perform the Hajj this year and paid the full cost. In other news, the government today announced several affordable insurance and takaful packages under the Rahmah initiative. Domestic Trade and Cost of Living Minister Datuk Sri Salahuddin Ayub says this is to support more Malaysians, especially those in the B40, to own insurance or takaful coverage.
He said the Rahmah insurance package includes coverage for personal accidents of up to 50,000 ringgit. Benefits also include reimbursement of medical expenses at government hospitals and emergency relief payments in the event of flood evacuation of up to 750 ringgit depending on the plan. According to Salahuddin, the new benefit is added at no additional cost with an annual premium at the rate of 53 ringgit and 50 cents and 79 ringgit and 50 cents, including sales tax. The insurance packages are provided by Allianz General Insurance Berhad, Etika General Insurance Berhad and Etika General Takaful Berhad. Salahuddin highlighted the package by Allianz, which offers a motorcycle plus additional coverage of 10,000 ringgit for rider and passenger, as well as a hospital allowance based on the motorcycle engine capacity. He called for those in the gig economy to come forward to get this protection, as many of them use motorcycles.
Now, the government is gradually phasing out the use of the B40, M40 and T20 income classification to make way for a new system that can better depict Malaysians' current economic situation. Associate Director at Baharu Group Asia, Hafizi Razali, outlines how best to approach the matter.
We'll have to be clear on what really is the definition of income here, because what's typically used before this is gross income. So what we should be using is a net income after deducting your statutory declarations, the statutory payment, taxation, for example, right? And the second aspect of it is where you're actually living at, the geographical locations, because if you're living in Klang Valley, the cost of living are different from what you may be facing through if you're living in Alosta, for example. And the third part of it is on the household reality, right? We'll have to consider how many people are actually living within the same households and how many people within the household is actually earning to support the number of people living in the same household. So what we term this is we want to equalize the household income so that we get a better representation on whether a family is okay to do financially or not, and if there's any assistance that's required.
Hafizi said the next challenge for the government is to accurately identify households' needs to better align financial aid for those facing cost of living difficulties.
Yeah, in the long run, it's good because then we'll have a better reading of what's happening economically of the people, right? But there's a challenge to that as well. And challenge is identifying how people are living their life. And the recent guidance released by the EPF, which is called Bulan Jawad, is a good reading of how we should carry this forward, because then you'll be able to identify how much do people or families really need in order for you to live a dignified living across different locations in Malaysia. So it's a realistic project. And what's more important is to make sure that the government has access to the data that require in order for the reading to be as accurate as possible. You will not be 100% accurate, but if you have a good reading of it, then that's good enough to guide your policy decisions moving forward, right? And of course, you won't have specific numbers that you can target, but we can start off by a range that's considered as reasonable by a large number of the population. So the expectation on the ground and the policy making will have to come to a meeting point And to me, that's the more difficult part, to make sure that both of the sides are aligned at the center, so that there's a win-win situation, right?
Time for a quick break. Stay tuned.
Meet the residents of Element City. Berita baik untuk semua para pelanggan Pack Movie. Anda boleh memenangi tiket filem untuk menonton Elemental dengan Astro Rewards Diwan Utama. Hanya jawab soalan-soalan mudah melalui aplikasi My Astro. Jumpa anda di sana.
The search for the missing submersible known as the Titan is reaching a critical stage as the deadline for the remaining oxygen passes. Additional deep-sea search equipment have arrived in the area, with more on its way. The U.S. Coast Guard confirmed that deep-water remotely operated vehicles had reached the sea floor. Teams from the U.S., Canada and France, using airplanes and ships, have searched almost 26 square kilometers of open sea. Last Tuesday, banging noises were detected from the vicinity of the submersible's last known location. However, the U.S. Coast Guard could not confirm the source of the noise. The 6.7-meter submersible, operated by U.S.-based OceanGate Expeditions, began its descent at 8 a.m. on Sunday, with 5 people on board and 96 hours of air. It lost contact near the end of what should have been a 2-hour dive to the Titanic wreck. At least 37 people have been injured, 4 of them seriously, after a large explosion in central Paris. Emergency workers are still searching for 2 people who are feared to be buried under the rubble of a building that partially collapsed from the blast. The incident occurred in a building along Rue Saint-Jacques, a street in the Latin Quarter of the capital city. The building was initially engulfed in fire, but the blaze was later brought under control. Witnesses reported a strong smell of gas prior to the blast, but authorities say it is too early to determine the cause of the explosion. Investigators are looking into whether the building conditions violated regulations or if an individual had acted without care. Meanwhile, in northwest China, 9 people have been detained over an explosion at a barbecue restaurant, which has killed at least 31 people. 7 more people are receiving medical treatment, one of whom is in critical condition. Among those in custody was the owner of the Fuyang barbecue restaurant in Yinchuan City. The explosion took place Wednesday night on the eve of the 3-day Dragon Boat Festival holiday in China, a time when many gather for celebratory meals. According to a preliminary investigation by the fire department, 2 restaurant employees smelled a gas leak about an hour before the blast. They then found a broken valve on a gas tank and were in the process of replacing it when the blast occurred. The incident is one of China's deadliest explosions at a restaurant in recent years, prompting President Xi Jinping to order a safety overhaul across the country. It has also sparked discussion on Chinese social media about the safety standards of barbecue restaurants, which gained new popularity this year after the lifting of COVID-19 restrictions. Meanwhile, in Beijing, temperatures soared above 40 degrees Celsius for the first time since 2014. Residents have been warned of hot weather over the weekend, with the return of heat waves that affected northern China last week.
The city of nearly 22 million people raised an orange alert early Thursday morning, the second highest weather warning. An orange alert is issued when the maximum temperature exceeds 40 degrees Celsius in a single day, or the maximum temperature remains above 37 degrees Celsius for 2 consecutive days. Last week, the National Weather Bureau issued an alert for heat stroke, almost 2 weeks earlier than in previous years, as it reported new record temperatures for the month of June. The latest round of high temperatures will also hit the northern Chinese region of Inner Mongolia and Xinjiang in the far west.
That wraps up AWANI Tonight. Thank you for watching. My name is Raya Mia and we'll see you again